And welcome back to the European Parliament in Brussels for the second part of Talking Europe on France 24, where I'm joined by José Bové, a sheep farmer turned MEP. Mr. Bové rose to global fame 15 years ago after he demolished a half-built McDonalds in the French town of Millau. Now, the action was the culmination of a lifetime protest against what he calls the evil of globalisation and junk food. Mr. Bové, thank you very much for being with us. You know, some Americans, some of your friends as well, portray you as a modern-day Asterix, you know, the Gallic character who fought the Roman Empire at the time. Now, you're not fighting the Roman Empire, you're fighting what you call the evils of globalization. Is it a fair description of your mission?
Well, I think it's important to show to the people what's happening really. You know, everybody has to eat every day. This is if you don't eat, you die. And the problem is that it's more and more difficult now to have a correct food and to be able to choose your own food directly. Because now the big companies are choosing for you.
Well, that's precisely what you describe in a book that you've just published called L'alimentation en otage, Our Food Held Hostage. Unfortunately, it hasn't been translated into English yet, but I think it's a very interesting book where you describe what you call the loss of food sovereignty. You explain that starting in the 30s, we saw the emergence of multinationals. There are not that many, but they entirely control what we eat. Some striking statistics there. You say, for instance, that the German group Erich Westjohann controls 68% of the production of white eggs across the planet.
That's true. And you can make this picture for cows, you can make it for chicken, as you say, and you can make it also for seeds on vegetables. And this is the way how 4 or 5 companies are completely deciding what we're going to eat and what the farmers are going to grow. And this is going to be a big problem, because if tomorrow we have a disease, as we had on chicken, la crise aviaire, we had this disease for a few years ago, it could be terrible. And this could be more and more dangerous. And if also, in the same time, we have less vegetable species of vegetables in each category, that means that the diversity, the cultivated diversity, is going to completely be destroyed. And if the climate change goes on how it's going on now, what is going to happen? What are we going to eat after?
And that's precisely what you write in your book. You say that 3 multinationals control half of the global production of seeds, the 2 American giants Monsanto and DuPont, and the Swiss Syngenta. What you explain is basically their philosophy is we need one size fits all. And this leads to an impoverishment of all the types of seeds that we've been cultivated for centuries.
For them, it's quite easy. They want to control the market of seeds, and they want the seeds to be able to go with their herbicides. So they can sell the seed and the herbicide and the fertilizers also. And the same companies are able to bring this to the farmers. That means that more and more seeds are patent, and they are GMOs to be able to take the herbicide. With that way of going on, the farmers are not able anymore to choose their own seeds and to exchange with the other farmers their seed, which this is the real biodiversity.
Now, you're a lawmaker from the Green Party. Europe likes to say that it's the safest place in the world in terms of food security. You mentioned GMOs, other things. Is Europe a safe place? Can European citizens be sure that what they have in their place has been tested and is safe to eat?
Well, this is a fight, a continual fight to be sure that the citizens are going to stay in good health. For example, we have a European institution, which is EFSA, which is the European Food Security Agency. We need to have more and more tests on food. For example, there are new kinds of GMO. They have been never tested. We have to do it. We have things in food, nanoparticles of titan, dioxide of titan. Never EFSA has been able to see if this is dangerous for health. And you say that
they can lead to cancer. That's your fear.
Yeah, this is really one of the possibilities.
Where do you find these nanoparticles?
So you can find these nanoparticles in more than 100 kind of food in Europe. And we have this especially in cookies or sweets as the M&Ms, Hollywood chewing gums, things like that. But you can have it in more than 100 products. You see it's clearly marked, and I want to tell it to everybody. If behind the package you see E171, that means that this is titan dioxide. The problem is that in the European Parliament, we made a law to say this has been put in very clearly on the package, this is nano. But for the moment, the big companies make pressure, lobbies on the Commission because they don't want it to go on. Since 3 years, we're waiting this to be going on.
There's a similar debate regarding the so-called endocrine disruptors. There's a very intense debate here at the European Parliament. But what does the Commission do? Are there laws to ban these products? And do you believe that if these products are dangerous, we should apply the so-called principle of precaution?
It's clear. When there's a possibility of problem, and when the companies are not able to say, this is sure, we have to use the precautionist principle at the beginning, and not to wait.
But it's not the case in Europe.
But it's not the case in Europe. And I remember 2 years ago, we were fighting against Syngenta for the neonicotinoid, which are pesticides, which are killing the bees.
Yeah.
Yes. Syngenta made so many pressure on EFSA because they refused that. EFSA was saying that clearly these pesticides were responsible of the death of the bees.
Now, every French viewer will remember this footage of you demolishing a half-built McDonald's in Millau. That was back, I believe, 15 years ago.
16
years ago, to be absolutely precise. I've got some figures here for you. Burger King will create 4,000 jobs in France over the next few years. They want to open 400 chains. I'm being told that France is a paradise for fast food chains. Why is that? You seem to have lost the battle.
Well, you know, when I see what's happening in the United States, where all these kinds of fast foods, people are changing their way of eating. This is quite funny. It's in the United States, which is.
But the French want more and more of those.
For the moment, the
chains.
French still believe in this kind of food, of junk food. I think they think it's modern. It's incredible, but I think.
Or maybe it's cheap.
And that's the problem. And this is the problem with the French restaurants. Maybe the French restaurants have to change a way of working and to make more efforts to bring back people in their small restaurants.
But you seem to have lost the battle there regarding junk food.
Well, I'm not sure, you know. I'm not sure that people are still going to go there during times. I hope that people will understand that if you standardize food, you need industrial food. And of course, when you see what happened in the United States with obesity, and which is now a health problem for all United States, this is beginning also in France. And we saw more and more obesity. So obesity, I think, is going to be one of the problems with this kind of junk food.
I haven't mentioned the elephant in the room yet, the Common Agricultural Policy. It's the EU's flagship policy on agriculture. It swallows, I believe, almost 30% of the EU budget. Is the Common Agricultural Policy, from your point of view as a Green, a good thing or a bad thing for Europe?
I think if we want to have a European policy or an agriculture policy, we need to organize this. But for me, the European policy we have now is only going for industrial agriculture and for big farms. And even the environmental part of this agriculture policy is not going on the right, good direction. So for me, we have a bad policy. And of course, if we look at all the tools, we have more and more problems, for example, on milk.
Well, we're going to talk about milk in a moment, but the Commission says that it's currently working on a new version of the Common Agricultural Policy. The Commission wants to make it greener and more efficient. You don't believe it's the case?
It's not, absolutely not the case. Because if we wanted really to have a green policy, we need to have very strong measures. For example, to be able to have crop rotation. This is the first agronomic thing that all the farmers know about. In this moment, this has been refused. We have only diversification. That means that you can keep on 70% of the land the same crop year after year. This is completely a bad direction. That means that we're continuing in the same way with industrial agriculture and monoculture. This is completely stupid.
You mentioned milk a moment ago. The European Union milk quotas were lifted on the 31st of March after more than 30 years, creating opportunities for some while potentially threatening the livelihood of others. Let's watch our report brought to us by our team in Germany.
We're in the state of Brandenburg, a farming region not far from Berlin. With 200 cows, milking isn't profitable for Karin Beuster. She makes her income elsewhere on the farm. Falling milk prices have forced many farms to close, and Karin worries that lifting the milk quotas will mean the same for others.
Of course there will be more milk on the market, and the prices will slump even further. Right now you really have to ask yourself if you want to hit that wall head on, or if it's not better to say, stop, that's enough now.
Quotas were imposed in 1984 as part of Europe's Common Agricultural Policy to stop the milk surplus. The scheme capped milk production to stabilise the market, and it's long been known that the quotas would end in 2015. Small dairy farmers are worried, but for large-scale producers, it's a godsend. Still in Brandenburg, we head for a farm with 2,500 animals. Here they produce 17 tonnes of milk a day. Once the quotas are gone, that figure will start rising.
We get 10 to 15% more from our cows. That's down to efficiency and to the richer feed. But nowadays it's not enough to just be a milk producer. You have to learn how to sell. So you're not just handing over your milk and waiting for a month until you're given a price for it.
In this industry, size really matters. The big farms can talk directly to distributors and negotiate a good price for their milk.
José Bové, was it a wise decision to lift quotas on milk?
I think it's a crazy solution. This has been decided by Mrs. Fisher-Boel when she was Agriculture Commissioner in 2003. It's very easy to understand. If you want, when you sell agricultural produce, you need to be sure that what you produce, you'll be able to sell it. If you produce more than you need, the price goes down and down. That's why we had quotas, to be sure that the volumes and the price will stay always at the same thing.
And what do you predict will happen to dairy farmers?
What is going to happen is that the world production is going to increase. At the European level, some regions, some countries want to increase. Ireland wants to increase more than 50% her product. This is completely a crazy situation. So prices are going to fall down. The small farmers and those who may have a lot of investments are going to be crashing down. That means that more and more farmers are going to be put out, and this in the most difficult regions of Europe.
We talked about what's in our plates. You know, like me, that more and more consumers turn to organic food. Is it a good thing? Does it really make a difference if I go to an organic shop and I buy organic vegetables?
Clearly, we have a European label for organic food. I think this is very important. That way you are sure that there's no pesticides and no chemical in your produce. It's important. In this moment, in the European Parliament, we're working on a new legislation for organic agriculture. And this is, I think, is an important moment to increase, to be sure that organic agriculture is not going to begin to be exactly as industrial agriculture. Some big companies want to take organic agriculture because they understand that more and more people each day eat or drink organic food.
But as a rule, organic food is more expensive. So once again, it's only wealthy consumers who can afford to eat safer food.
Well, this is not true. We have many examples in France, which is, of course, the country I know the best, where we have local producer linked with consumers. We call this a MAP, and these products soar at price which are cheaper than in the worst big supermarkets. So this is quite interesting to see that we can have organic food at a cheaper price than in supermarkets.
José Bové, thank you very much for talking to us and sharing your thoughts on what we eat and how we produce our food. I remind our viewers that you're a member of the European Parliament from France and you belong to the Green Party. And thank you for watching this edition of Talking Europe. I was at the European Parliament in Brussels. It's time to go back to Paris now for more news on France 24.